All right, and welcome back to Web3 Insights, the podcast where we sit down with the people building the decentralized space, one line of code at a time. Today I'm joined by Joan Alavedra, co-founder and CEO of OpenFort, one of the most promising and early innovators in account abstraction, Paymaster, and wallet infrastructure for Web3. From powering game studios to pioneering non-custodial wallet solutions, OpenFort is now taking a huge step, open sourcing its wallet management infrastructure to empower developers worldwide. Also, OpenFort is a venture-backed company. In May 2023, they raised a seed round of $3 million by Gummy Crypto's Capital and Maven 11 with participation from Game7, NGC Ventures, and Human Capital. Without further ado, hi Joanne, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing? Great. Thanks for having me around.
Welcome to the show. Joan, let's start at the beginning. OpenFort's first big breakthrough came from your Paymaster solution. Let's say an elegant way to abstract away gas fees for developers, especially game studios. Can you walk us through that early journey? What problem were you solving, and how did you land on this path?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me around. When we started OpenFort, it was in the midst of 2022. During that time, the narrative was strongly favoring gaming as a vertical where a lot of things could happen within crypto. There were a lot of theses around the NFTs, around gaming tokens, how you could aggregate different games within platforms and make people buy different assets there, etc. And so one of the first things that we identified with OpenFort at the time was, okay, if you were trying to use a Chrome extension like MetaMask to interact with games, you always needed to have this wallet UI with the pop-up. You need to have tokens in your wallet to transact, etc., etc. And so the first breakthrough for us was understanding, okay, how we can actually simplify all that flow. And at the time, there was something called account abstraction. It was a new Ethereum standard. And so we were one of the first ones to actually implement all this account abstraction logic into the gaming ecosystem, which technically speaking, it's not a JavaScript, right? So it was like a added challenge there to how to migrate this to Unity, to Unreal Engine, and stuff like that.
And how did that early traction in Web3 gaming lead you to, let's say, the broader wallet infrastructure vision you have today?
Yeah, so I think from one thing that we learned while we were doing we were serving the different games and different ecosystems is that gaming is a space where the MVP or the startup lean approach to building a product was not easy, and is in most cases not as straightforward as if you are building a web app or a mobile app. The reason being is because the game, you want things to be extremely detailed, to have a very fun loop within the game for people to just keep playing, keep discovering, being intrigued, etc. And so we we evolved to a more horizontal infrastructure solution from a necessity standpoint, because we didn't see the space growing as fast as we wanted. We started looking outwards toward what other possibilities existed out there. And so from there, we started identifying, okay, DeFi would eventually need this. More consumer apps and mobile apps would actually need this too. And so that was when we started implementing new technologies within our client SDKs and stuff like that.
Awesome, I love it. And before we transition into another topic, I just want to ask you, what kind of games do you like to play? I myself am a huge League of Legends player, but so what kind of games do you like to play?
Yeah, I had my League of Legends period back at university.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of nostalgic for all games, so I come back to Age of Empires, Age of Mythology. There's a bunch of open source Age of Empires strategy games too that are online. So every now and then I kind of love to disconnect in those worlds.
I feel like there's a very strong pipeline from playing Pokemon as a kid and then like transitioning into different strategy and
Yeah.
other games. I remember playing Civilization
Oh,
4 a
I love
lot.
that one.
It's always a good one. Okay, perfect. I mean, you always say that developers are the backbone of Web3 adoption. I think we can both agree that sometimes their experience is one of the biggest bottlenecks, though. What are sort of the biggest friction points you've seen when teams integrate blockchain tooling into their apps?
Yeah. I think for one, I mean, probably if you asked me this question 2 years ago, I would say that the stack is evolving very fast, but we're still probably not there. Asking this question today, I would say the stack is here. It's just not equally distributed, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of people, for good and for worse, we surf the web, we check on Perplexity and ChatGPT for solutions and stuff like that. And then sometimes, just as an example, these models are usually based on like what content has been most popular in the past. And so they they end up in solutions that are suboptimal for what today's top-notch technology existed. And so I think today the biggest problem is a discovery problem. And so if more developers entering the space knew about like the latest and newest technologies and solutions that existed, we would probably see like faster adoption, because the abstractions that exist today are already, I would confidently say, 90% there for the most part.
And how does OpenFort bridge, simplifying or eliminating these pain points so that teams can really focus on building rather than just plumbing?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes down to meeting the developers where they are, right? And so I think like eventually it's just evolving your product towards different type of like devices and like different type of platforms. So for instance, if one thing that we discovered is that like first iteration, whenever you start building infrastructure for mobile apps, is that a lot of people use React Native and Expo, which is fine. But then like there's people that they want to build like a very, let's say, polished experience only for iOS, right? Or people that want to do the same for Android. And then they would probably ask for client SDKs that are native to those, like Swift, etc., right? So when like the whole focus here is kind of like, okay, now we have enough people that want to build within this ecosystem and with this framework, we should start like taking the learnings from the React Native SDK that we built and start building things in the Swift SDK, so that people can actually also abstract it in that ecosystem. So I think the biggest lesson here is like, instead of doing everything all at once, you just go step by step from kind of like a total developer addressable market, if that makes sense. And then from there you just like focus on those that really need it.
And I know that a lot of your backend infrastructure is built on Golang and TypeScript. Is there any reason why you chose those two texts?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I don't know if I want to get into like the language battle of like which one is better, why one like has better memory, memory management versus another, etc. Like it's clear that some perform better than others in like
Mhm.
specific parts, but it also it's important to keep like a strict balance of like shipping fast and
Mhm.
iterating, versus whenever you feel you have something that is maybe 80% there for the rest of let's say the next 5 years, then you might then decide, okay, I want to actually use like a more close like to the bare metal language, or I want to have something that is more performant but like less like less flexible for me, and then you just like start building on Go or like on Rust and stuff like that. And so for us, this was like the sweet combination between, okay, having an API that we can tweak fairly fast based on feedback, and having these different services in Go that we know it needs to be like more performant.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things that I like the most about OpenFort is that you're really developing a developer first culture within the company. I think you often say that curiosity and maintaining an open source contribution mindset are strong signals of what an OpenFort engineer should embody. Why are these traits particularly important to you?
Yeah, I think like we are in a business of building tooling for people to integrate, right, and for people to find it useful. And so, to a certain extent, I believe that building a developer first company, it's also helping us build products that other developers will obviously use, but also that in the not so far future, LLMs and other AI agents will be able to use, right? And so if you have like a organized workload, you know how to classify like the different tasks that you need to do. If you're like a good end-to-end developer, then it's way more like it's easier for anyone to pick up the work that you've done and integrate, versus if you don't have this developer product minded mentality where everything might be like a bit more scattered. Like it has like a negative impact on like how much the company ships and how much people are actually able to use a product that they tried for the first time. So this is something that we internally want to be very kind of like rigid, if that makes sense, about.
Absolutely. And I mean, what kind of culture do you think that you're creating at OpenFort? I mean, obviously, you've mentioned collaboration, transparency, and community. But when someone goes into your website, especially the careers website, it is very clear that you're building a community within the company. Why is this important to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have as a project that tries to improve something in the world, I think we have like a certain duty
Mhm.
to tell people about it and like try to connect with people that also think in a similar fashion, or at least curious about this. um Obviously, the truth is that by doing so, we also get to meet very interesting people that might or might not contribute to the work that we do. But it also like helps us expand our viewpoints, understand like what other people think about. So I think like it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited about the open sourcing wallet infrastructure, front that you're developing. I know that OpenFort has really, really exciting updates coming up. Um, could you tell me a little bit more about what exactly you're open sourcing and why did you choose it now to do it?
Yeah, for sure. So it's something we're working on. It's a project called OpenSigner. This is like a word that we've been persistently pursuing for the past 1 year, which is, as a wallet infrastructure, one of like the key components of the abstractions that you do is how you create these private public key pairs, like these wallets, right? And so for the most part, what we saw in the market is a lot of people have really cool technology, but most of this technology is gatekept. It's like closed source, right?
Mhm.
And it's true, it works, and it's true that it provides great abstraction. But I think we can do, like, if we had to design like a key management system that could that could be focus on like being open source and being self-hosted and like having less vendor lock-in, I think we would be designing OpenSigner, right?
Mhm.
And so that's something that we identify as like, okay, developers eventually they will wake up to the idea that for their specific needs, for their specific project, maybe it's like a legal thing, maybe it's a compliant thing, maybe it's like a C management thing with the scale, etc. There is a segment of people that might as well just see that the project is open source and might eventually just take it self-host if they wanted or contribute to it back, right? And so that's kind of like the bet that we do with OpenSigner.
Awesome. Perfect. And what are you hoping to unlock for developers and partners building on OpenFort?
Yeah, so I mean, nothing should change from a
Mhm,
developer experience for these engineers interacting with OpenFort. OpenFort is like basically a cloud, like a premise solution built on top of OpenSigner,
mhm,
right? And so any developer using OpenFort is by default using OpenSigner. And so the added benefit of it is that you have the guarantee that you can, if you want at any point in time, move the key management to a self-host premise yourself and
mhm,
still be non-custodial to your clients.
mhm.
So that's the main value proposition there.
Awesome. I mean, I know that wallet creation and key management really sit at the heart of blockchain infrastructure. But I also know, and I don't have a lot of background in wallet creation and key management, but I think those are the toughest parts. How do you strike this balance between ease of use for developers and security slash decentralization for end users?
Yeah, I mean, there's no right or wrong answer to this. Yeah, at the end of the day, secure, like you need to think of security as like a Swiss cheese, right? Like you have like different layers, and like these different layers provide like extra security components to your whole system. OpenSigner is designed with this mentality, right? So whenever you want to create a non-custodial wallet with us, with OpenSigner, you have different methods to recover this wallet,
Mhm,
right? And then these different methods, they go from something that is more abstracted, but requires a little bit more of, let's say, configuration,
mhm,
to something that is, um, let's say, like less maybe user friendly. Like for instance, having having to remember that you have a passcode.
mhm,
So being like less user friendly, but also like a bit more secure because you have less, encryptions going around, which means there's less probability of something going wrong, right?
mhm,
And so you have like basically you developed a system that gives options,
mhm,
and then you just like indicate to developers what's the right option based on like the use case that they're trying to do, and like what would be like the right moments for them to decide, okay, I want to use passcode, or I want to use passkeys, or I want to use this, etc. Right. So this is basically the design system and like what was on top of our minds whenever we start figuring out things with OpenSigner.
Love it. Really driving that developer friendly first front, but also not compromising on safety. That's such a sweet spot. So these news are now live. So I think it went live this Monday, so November 10th, and it's ready to be used by the general public.
Correct. Yeah. We announced this OpenSigner on Monday. We published it on Product Hunt, like a great product-oriented
Mhm,
website. And yeah, we also open source the repos, the documentation, and so now we are in the phase of like talking to people, seeing like if they resonate with it, opening up for contributions of perhaps someone feels like adding a new signature scheme, right? Like you
mhm,
could, now we support Ethereum based chains and Solana
mhm,
signature schemes, but maybe someone wants to do like a Bitcoin signature scheme, right? Or like another blockchain, or someone wants to add like a different type of two-factor authentication, right?
mhm,
So like all these different features is something that we would love the community to take and
mhm,
expand. And obviously, like the what I would really love here is to have other companies using the same OpenSigner, because I think it's like such a great public good
mhm.
to the space.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Web3 infrastructure is getting more modular and more open source. When you look at the market, where do you see OpenFort sitting at? Especially, moving forward, are you trying to raise? What are sort of your future plans considering this new front?
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, I think where the market is going next with specifically with wallet infrastructure. I mean, at the end of the day, wallet infrastructure is such a key cornerstone within like the space, right? And so there's a lot of verticals that one could go and explore. You could go to privacy. You could go to server wallet interactions. You could go to monitoring, et cetera, right? Like, so there's a lot of things that you could do with wallets, standards, et cetera. For us, I think the next two verticals that I'm really excited to are agentic finance and how agents can communicate with their own wallets, and privacy, right? And how you can, in some parts, obfuscate information that you put on the blockchain while maybe still like staying compliant to specific parts of the geography or the jurisdiction that you're living. So those are the two verticals that I'm really excited to go and explore, and I think that's basically where OpenFort is heading to.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. In terms of, collaborations or partnerships, is there anything that you're excited about going into Q1 of 26?
Sure. So we are working with a couple of like projects that I'm really excited. One, it's in the identity space, where like we've seen for quite some months already how people are trying to launch credentials for humans, for bots, for companies, etc. And like with these credentials, there's a certain score, there's a certain benefit to it. I think it was like World who created a very interesting narrative around, okay, if you have a blockchain and in this blockchain you are human, you have certain priority, like certain block space priority towards other transactions that are non-human, right? And I think like we will see more of this sort of experimentation where there you might see more blockchains doing like other or like more providers prioritizing other type of like interactions. So I think like credentialing and identity is like something very interesting, and it's something we are already working with a partner. And then the other one that would be like really interesting, it's a collaboration we're doing with a project called Context as well, which they do like agentic finance. I'm really excited to see how our wallets like developed more economic activity between agents, and how even like I know like there will be features that we don't have today that might be a good request for feature type of thing. So I'm really excited to see where this is going.
I love it. And since we're talking about partnerships, one thing that comes to my mind is always events. Obviously, I met your growth manager at ABC this year. Are there any that you're going to be present next year? What do you think about crypto events in general? What is the general perception that you get?
Yeah. I mean, crypto is like an interesting industry where everyone is extremely remote and to a certain extent pseudo anonymous, or like likes to keep like a low profile. And so it's funny how like all these events are just like a gravity pull for people that they need to socialize every like 3 months of not maybe like of being remote, etc. I think like from the events that I've attended, it's always been like a delightful experience. I'm sort of like a more of an introvert person, so it also like trains you a bit. But I always get like such I just like meet like such fascinating group of people like building in new projects that I've never heard before. And so if you're like an infrastructure provider, like these are the opportunities that you need to attend to see what's the market looking at what are the next things that you should be aware of, etc. It's just a great opportunity to stay close to kind of your persona, like the customers that you can potentially serve.
Yeah. And how can we meet you in person? Are you going to any of the events in Dubai, Abu Dhabi this year? Are you going to the major ones like Token next year?
Yeah, so for sure, Token. I think there's a couple of things happen in Dubai, Abu Dhabi that probably like to attend. I think like my rule of thumb is if there's the company is based in Barcelona, so if there's like a like a non-stop flight,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
worth going. If you have to do one stop, it needs to be really worth it. So yeah, that's kind of like the mentality that we have with this. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I think Barcelona and Dubai are pretty well connected, so
Yeah.
you're good. Perfect. I guess I just want to wrap things up with some questions about your founder journey. Obviously, in this generation, there's so many different new founders, so many new CEOs, but only 10% of startups actually make it to generate some profit and just exist. So, as a founder in this space, especially in Web3, what has been sort of the hardest obstacles and the biggest wins for you?
The hardest obstacles and biggest wins. Okay. I think one of the speaking from a founder perspective, like one of the hardest things to do, it's usually to have a contrarian view of what you do,
Mhm.
meaning we all live in like different surroundings, like different cities, different environments, etc. And so something that you might do to for your companies to be successful, it's probably gonna be out of like the average
Mhm.
in a certain way, and I think it's healthy for a startup to always bet on something that it's not common. If
Mhm.
either if it's like a market that doesn't exist today, either if it's like the type of product that you are building, for what type of people that you're building it, even if it's like the culture that you have. So I think that in that regard, like this would be like one of the biggest challenges as a founder. Like the other, yeah, and then from a biggest win perspective, I think I'm obviously thankful for the opportunity of being a founder and the trust that the different investors have put on us and I can build in this product. So to me, this has been one of the biggest wins in my life. I feel like getting to work with people that I work, getting to experience my day to day, the opportunity to actually build something that I think is important for people to use and for the world to have access to. I think it's probably like the biggest win. If as a first degree of it, I earn money and I make my stakeholders money. That's perfect.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is your first venture. Like it's pretty big that you actually were able to raise and you're creating revenue, your runway is good. So really good job. I guess my last question for you is just what kind of advice would you give to technical founders to really balance innovation, engineering discipline, and probably product market fit?
Mm. I think, yeah, I think one of the biggest advices that I received at the time as a technical founder was just figuring out what you're really good at. If
Mhm.
you're really good at convincing people, if you're really good at building product, so I think like once you figure that out, then just like lean on it and just like keep going it, and then just try to hire more people that are really good at something else.
Mhm.
And so as a technical founder, like you always feel like there's a lot of things that you needed to do.
Mhm.
So you can either like just get the bare minimum of something until you hire someone that really outpace whatever you did, or simply just like I would say like just keep doing what you're really good at. That's why like people trust you in the first place. and then like things will come as like a snowball effect from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think people always say hire the divas. A lot of people are scared of hiring big personalities because they're scared of, being confiscated. But the reality is that you can get so much more value out of that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on today's show. You can explore OpenFort's open source release and developer tools at openfort.xyz. Don't forget to follow them also on their socials. We're going to put them on the description box below. And don't forget to follow Web3 Insights on Spotify, YouTube here. We're here to help you also in terms of recruitment. So I'm Rose Sarah Vieira. Have a beautiful day. Thank you so much, Joanne.
Yeah, thank you, Rose. It's been great.
Ciao, ciao.